It's over. After dropping out of the top 200 altogether, Netflix has made the not-so-difficult decision to axe with Love Meghan, plunging the Duchess, who really cannot seem to iron her clothes. As I say, I'm not a fashion person, but seriously, into new crisis. The exclusive from Rob Shooter, who was the first to officially confirm that Netflix was ending its exclusive partnership with the Sussexes. He writes, "The royal glow has dimmed. Meghan Markle's Netflix project with Love Meghan won't be getting a third season, sources confirm to Shooter Scoop. Despite Meghan and Harry's fresh multi-year first look deal with the streamer, insiders say the lifestyle-heavy series is on life support. The second series was a bust, never cracking Netflix's top 10 in the US, UK, or globally. The numbers were dreadful. But there were other revelations in this book. Angela, look at this. Queen Elizabeth blamed sinister forces for Diana's death. This from Tom Sykes of The Royalist, who has recently put forward his case as to why he believes Diana was murdered. Paul Burrell, the late Princess Diana's butler, has claimed that Queen Elizabeth II warned him to beware of sinister forces of which she did not know in the wake of Princess Diana's death. He is an absolutely key figure for those who claim that Diana was murdered. It was to him that Diana wrote her famous note saying her husband was planning an accident in her car before her death. This weekend, he has broken cover with the publication of a new memoir, in which he alleges that in December 1997, the Queen told him, "Do be careful. There are forces at work in my country of which even I have no knowledge." But look, Angela, we've got to talk about the new royal bombshell book. This is from Paul Burrell, who was described during the time that the late Princess of Wales was alive as her rock.
He's not actually falling in with the most important things you can and you can't do. It's all about him. We're going to talk about it later, that he just doesn't care about anything. He thinks he's going to be clever by doing that, but the Queen was much more clever. And when she said, "What do I do with this?" she would know exactly what to do with that, but she wouldn't deal with it. She didn't want to do that. She didn't believe in that. She wanted everything to be done in the right manner, from aid to aid, and then her, if necessary. And she certainly wouldn't be there for Harry to call her day and night and start shouting, ask for money. I mean, if you remember how appalling he was in the last few months of her life, where she was still grieving for her husband, and she was very, very much in pain because of the cancer, the blood cancer, and that he could be so terrible and keep phoning and shouting and saying that she wants money and all that sort of thing.
And what's so fascinating is that even Meghan's natural allies, especially those in the MSM, are realizing this is a bust and trying to get her to understand that there has to be a second act. So look at this from the Los Angeles Times, the liberal left-wing Los Angeles Times. Why is Meghan Markle wasting her time with Love when she could just go back to acting? And their culture critic posed this question. Many are predicting that With Love Meghan will not get a third season, though Christmas special is on the books. And as with anything involving Markle, there has been a lot of hate thrown around, particularly from the British press. I take no pleasure in hating With Love Meghan. Markle is a local gal who arguably got a very bum deal in her early married life, and I honestly want her to succeed, but maybe she would be better off returning to her previous profession, acting. And that prompted the Royal News Network to post, even the LA Times culture critic thinks With Love Meghan is a pretentious mess.
It didn't just fail, it vanished. One day, Meghan Markle's Netflix series, With Love, was quietly limping along at the bottom of the rankings. The next, gone. No warning, no finale, no fanfare. just deleted from relevance. According to insiders, it's the fastest fall in Netflix history, an 11-day freefall that took the show from a shaky debut at 73 to total obliteration by day 12. Never in Netflix's global charts has a celebrity-driven show collapsed so hard, so fast. But this wasn't just a TV flop. This was supposed to be her comeback, her reinvention. Her Oprah-style empire is in the making. For Meghan, this wasn't just a show. It was the strategy, the lifestyle brand, the jam jars, the mocktail syrup, the curated, relatable mom aesthetic. All of it was built on the idea that with love, Meghan would be her launchpad back into public adoration. But instead, the world gave her silence. Or worse, mockery. Even Meghan's own media allies, the ones who used to cheer her every move, are now asking the same question. What the hell happened? An exclusive report by Rob Shooter, the same journalist who first confirmed that Netflix was pulling the plug on the Sussex's larger production deal, delivered the brutal truth. The royal glow has dimmed, and that glow? It's not coming back. Not without fire, not without scandal, not without something drastic. Because here's the uncomfortable reality behind the PR spin. Netflix didn't just cancel a show. They pulled the rug out from under an entire brand. And when a brand built on curated mystery and controlled narratives starts falling apart, desperation creeps in. Quietly at first, then all at once. And the question now isn't just what Meghan does next. It's, what won't she do? Because behind the press releases, the holiday specials, the polite, maybe next time language, there's a scramble happening. Private calls, silent pitches, and an increasingly aggressive push to pivot toward acting, toward reality TV, even toward putting her children in front of the camera for the first time. And for a woman who once told Oprah she left the royal family to protect her children's privacy, that would be the ultimate reversal. But this isn't just about one woman's media miscalculation. This is about a collapsing PR empire, a billionaire dream turned branding graveyard, a Netflix deal that started with palace intrigue and ended with spoiled jam and a fake orchard. And the people watching it all burn, they're not looking away this time. They're pulling out receipts. Because the story of With Love, Meghan isn't over. It's just changed genres from inspirational to cautionary. And what Meghan tried next will blow everything wide open. But first, let's rewind. Because of the numbers behind the downfall, they tell a story Netflix won't. If there's one thing Netflix is brutally honest about, it's data. No amount of curated Instagram posts, influencer partnerships, or emoji-covered family portraits can override the cold, hard numbers. And the numbers surrounding With Love, Meghan, they aren't just bad, they're historically disastrous. When With Love, Meghan launched, there was cautious optimism behind the scenes. Netflix had invested in the Duchess with the hope that her royal mystique, her Hollywood connections, and the global curiosity around her post-palace life would convert into subscriber retention and buzz. After all, if Harry and Meghan's 2022 docuseries could briefly break into the top 10, surely a breezy lifestyle series featuring Meghan's bread recipes, garden walkthroughs, and passive-aggressive quotes about healing would at least chart well, right? Wrong. Globally, the series debuted at 73. Not bad for a soft launch, but not enough to justify its budget. Then came the nosedive. Day 2, it dropped to 85. Day 3, down again to 98. The freefall continued. Day 4, you won 18. Day 5, you were 127. Day 6, you were 129. By day 9, it was barely hanging on at 154. And by day 12, it had vanished completely from Netflix's top 200. Let that sink in. A royal-driven Netflix project disappeared from the global charts in under 2 weeks. No show with that level of press coverage has cratered so quickly. Not even Heart of Invictus, which at least clung to the charts in smaller markets. With Love, Meghan couldn't even hold attention in Meghan's home base of California, let alone the UK or global territories like Germany or France. But it wasn't just viewers turning away, it was the press. Normally, Meghan enjoys a buffer zone. Legacy outlets like the LA Times or Vogue often soften criticism with sympathetic phrasing or artful dodging. Not this time. Not. The Los Angeles Times ran a devastating headline. Why is Meghan Markle wasting her time with Love when she could just go back to acting? Their culture critic didn't hold back, calling the show a pretentious mess and openly wondering why Meghan was even attempting the Martha Stewart lane. It wasn't just a critique. It was a dissection by one of her own. Netflix insiders were even harsher behind closed doors. One source bluntly told journalist Rob Shooter, "Netflix wants global hits. Meghan's show just didn't deliver." Another was more cutting. It was designed to boost her lifestyle line, but with flat sales, the synergy flopped. And that's the real story. Netflix didn't sign Meghan Markle for seasonal jam jars and floral centerpieces. They signed her to move the needle, to retain subscribers, to stir buzz. And the truth is, she didn't. Her carefully staged lifestyle series failed to generate cultural conversation, meme traction, or viewer loyalty. It was bland, forgettable, and ultimately disposable. Even the so-called hate watchers, a demographic Meghan's team ironically relied on to boost numbers, gave up after episode 2. Why? Because there wasn't anything worth getting mad about. There were no confessions, no royal dirt, no shocking revelations, just sourdough starter and vague affirmations about authenticity. Audiences didn't hate it, they just didn't care. And when Netflix executives looked at the analytics, viewer drop-off rates, social media impressions, international charting, they saw a show dying in real time. That's when the decision came down. No season 3. A holiday special? Maybe. But insiders called it what it really is, a swan song. Netflix isn't in the charity business. Meghan was brought in to produce hits, not branded therapy sessions. Her failure to deliver didn't just end a series. It may have permanently damaged her entertainment credibility. And yet, she's not giving up. Because what Meghan did next wasn't retreat. It wasn't a reflection. It was a reinvention. But the next move, it wasn't about jam. It wasn't about bread. It was about the children. And when the cameras stop rolling, but the money dries up, that's when desperation takes hold. And Meghan's kids may be next. At first glance, with love, Meghan seemed harmless, quaint even. A sunlit kitchen, a vintage apron, close-ups of a perfectly imperfect loaf of sourdough being sliced for an imaginary brunch. It was the Duchess of Sussex rebranded as the Duchess of Pinterest. But scratch beneath the surface, and it becomes painfully clear. This wasn't a show. It was a pitch, a lifestyle launchpad, a Trojan horse for a brand that never truly existed. You see, this entire project was designed with one goal in mind: American Riviera Orchard, Meghan's secret weapon. A carefully trademarked, soft-launched lifestyle brand meant to rival the likes of Martha Stewart, Goop, and Joanna Gaines. There were whispers of cookbooks, homeware lines, and organic snacks. But above all, with love, Meghan was supposed to be the soft sell, an emotional gateway that would get viewers invested in her as a modern homemaker, a wellness guru, a relatable mother who just happens to live in a $14 million Montecito mansion. But there was a problem. People didn't buy it, literally or figuratively. Even with the full weight of Netflix behind her, Meghan's jam and bread strategy fell flatter than her lavender lemon loaves. The rollout was supposed to be a masterclass in synergy. Every on-screen sourdough moment would lead viewers to her online store, where they could purchase limited edition marmalades and rustic ceramic ramekins. But the online store never fully materialized. The as ever tagline, which was meant to anchor the brand's emotional message, ended up feeling vague and empty. And the physical products? When they did arrive, like the much-mocked personalized jam jars sent to influencers, they were met with ridicule, not reverence. Critics called it elitist branding disguised as mindfulness. Social media users dubbed it Goop Light without the grit. And the worst part? Meghan never looked comfortable selling any of it. Her body language on the show felt overly controlled. Her voiceovers lacked warmth. The supposedly intimate home footage was so heavily stylized, it came off more like an insurance ad than a personal invitation. The entire thing felt engineered. And this is where it all unraveled, because audiences today are hypersensitive to authenticity. When Gwyneth Paltrow sells wellness through Goop, love her or hate her, she believes it. Same with Martha Stewart. Same with Joanna Gaines. But Meghan? She wasn't baking because she loves baking. She was baking because she needed a business model. And viewers felt that disconnect instantly. Insiders now say Netflix saw right through it. One executive allegedly told a colleague, "We're not here to sell jam, we're here to sell stories." And that's when the tide turned. What was once pitched as a multi-season, multi-platform brand strategy was quietly downgraded to a 2-season test run with one final holiday special, a symbolic gesture rather than a vote of confidence. But here's where the branding failure becomes truly damaging. This wasn't just a business flop, it was a reputational one. Meghan's entire post-royal image was built on the idea that she was smart, strategic, and media savvy, that she could carve out a new lane for herself, outside of the palace, outside of Hollywood, and outside of Harry's shadow. But instead, she leaned into the worst cliches of influencer culture: curated vulnerability, aesthetic motherhood, and vague empowerment slogans that meant nothing. And now, even her own allies are starting to admit it. The LA Times called the show a waste of potential. Vogue didn't even bother to feature it. And on social media, where Meghan once commanded a loyal following, many former fans have gone silent, or worse, sarcastic. One viral tweet summed up the mood perfectly. "I watched with love, Meghan, so you don't have to." Spoiler, she bakes bread, sighs a lot, and doesn't say anything real. But Meghan isn't just losing viewers, she's losing control. Because in the entertainment world, when the brand fails, the sharks start circling. Production companies back away. Agents get nervous. The next deal becomes harder to land. And the question everyone's asking behind closed doors is, if she can't sell bread, how will she sell anything else? The failure of With Love, Meghan didn't just expose a flawed show. It exposed a fundamental truth about Meghan's media strategy. You can't sell relatability from a castle. And now, with her Netflix credibility shot and her lifestyle brand on life support, Meghan is staring down a brutal reality. The bread is stale, the jam didn't stick, and the brand she was building her future on, it's already crumbling. So what do you do when your empire collapses? If you're Meghan, you pivot to the one card no one thought she'd play, her children. For years, Meghan and Harry have insisted on one boundary, one line they refuse to let the public cross: their children. From the moment Archie and Lilibet were born, their images were blurred, their faces hidden behind hearts and filters. Their appearances so rare, they became rumors. In interviews, they spoke about protecting their privacy and the dangers of overexposure. It became a core part of their brand. The image of the fiercely guarded, camera-shy Sussex family living an idyllic life in Montecito, far from the flashing lights of Buckingham Palace. But now, that narrative is cracking, and fast. With Love, Meghan collapsing, her lifestyle brand stalling, and the Netflix money drying up, sources say the pressure to pivot is growing. And the pivot? It might involve Archie and Lilibet stepping out of the shadows, not in private holiday cards or rare charity events, but in full-blown public-facing content. In short, reality TV, or something dangerously close to it. Insiders familiar with the Sussexes team say there's a growing sense of panic. Overhead costs are ballooning, $6 million a month by some estimates. That Montecito estate, it doesn't pay for itself. And the failed Netflix rollout only accelerated the financial pressure. So what's left to monetize when your own brand no longer sells? Your children. Angela Levin, royal biographer and longtime Sussex critic, put it bluntly: she's going to try. Levin warned that Meghan may be preparing to use her kids as a lifeline, possibly in a documentary, possibly in a new show, possibly in influencer-style content disguised as family storytelling. And while Meghan has long claimed to protect her children from the spotlight, the hypocrisy is starting to show. The PR strategy is shifting, and the more desperate things get, the more likely it becomes that Archie and Lilibet will be pulled into the frame. Not blurred, not silhouetted, featured. And Harry? He's reportedly furious. Sources close to the palace suggest that this has become a source of serious tension between the Duke and Duchess. For Harry, the line is personal. He knows what it's like to grow up with the world watching. He knows how being treated like a commodity broke his mother. It's part of why he left the royal family in the first place. And now, the woman who once told Oprah that she just wanted a quiet life is allegedly considering the one thing he can't accept: putting their children on screen to save the brand. What's worse, the public's patience is wearing thin. Many feel emotionally manipulated by the Sussexes' selective use of their children. One minute, they're holding the kids up as symbols of innocence and privacy. Next, they're dropping carefully edited birthday videos or using the children's names in charity campaigns. Critics call it emotional baiting, using the suggestion of the children to drive curiosity and traffic without ever actually delivering substance. It's a push and pull strategy, and audiences are growing tired of the tease. And if Meghan goes through with it, if she crosses the line and puts her children on full public display, the backlash will be swift and unforgiving. Social media is already bracing for it. The phrase "pimping out the kids" has appeared more and more often on viral posts and Reddit threads. Commentators who once tread lightly now openly accuse Meghan of planning to use her children as clickbait with crowns. Even her defenders are concerned. They know this is dangerous territory, not just from a PR perspective, but from a deeply human one. Because once you cross that line, once you bring your children into the content machine, you can't undo it. The internet doesn't forget. And if audiences start associating Archie and Lilibet with a failing brand, a desperate comeback, or worse, a reality show, it's over. The sympathy evaporates. The mystique dies. And here's the irony. Meghan spent years criticizing the royal family for placing duty above protection. But now, in the middle of her own media collapse, she's the one standing at the edge of that same moral cliff, staring at the one move that could bring in headlines, dollars, and relevance, at the cost of her kids' innocence. Because when you have nothing left to monetize, when the jam fails, the Netflix deal dies, and the acting offers dry up, you either bow out gracefully, or you sell what's left. And Meghan may be about to sell everything. But while Meghan scrambles to control the narrative, Harry is left picking up the pieces and facing a future he was promised he'd never have to endure. When Meghan Markle first pitched with Love, Meghan, it wasn't just a series, it was a promise. To Netflix, to the public, and most of all, to Harry. She told him he could relax, step away from the cameras, focus on his charity work, and leave the financial heavy lifting to her. "You don't need to do anything," she reportedly reassured him. "My brand's going to make me a billionaire." But now, the dream has disintegrated. The show has tanked. The brand is a ghost. And suddenly, Prince Harry, the man who thought he'd escaped the spotlight, is back in the same uncomfortable position he tried so hard to leave behind, being forced to earn. It's a brutal twist for the Duke of Sussex. After Megxit, Harry was clear. He didn't want to be a working royal, but he also didn't want to be a Hollywood pawn. He envisioned a quiet life built around Invictus Games, mental health advocacy, and private philanthropy. Meghan's media empire was supposed to fund that dream, but now that dream is burning, fast, and the panic, it's real. Reports from royal insiders suggest that Harry is facing a harsh new reality. The money is running out. The couple's expenses are staggering. A $14 million Montecito mansion, elite security details, staff, PR teams, travel, and production costs, not to mention the looming costs of raising 2 children with the kind of lifestyle they've publicly promised. One insider estimated their monthly overhead to be more than $6 million a month. That's not a lifestyle. That's a furnace. And Harry's inheritance? It's not infinite. Much of the money he received from Princess Diana's estate, as well as the cash settlements from Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth's wills, has reportedly been used to sustain their lavish life since 2020. But without significant incoming revenue, the pot is shrinking, and the Netflix fallout just made things exponentially worse. Not only has With Love, Meghan been quietly shelved, but industry chatter suggests that Netflix may be backing away from their first look deal with the Sussexes altogether. That's huge. Without that production deal, their credibility in Hollywood takes a hit, and so does their leverage in negotiating new projects. In short, fewer deals, fewer checks, and fewer lifelines. Meanwhile, Meghan's lifestyle brand isn't generating any real income. There are no consistent product lines, no sellout launches, and no online store with buzz or demand. And Archewell, the nonprofit they use to promote heavily, has been relatively quiet, leading to speculation that its funding streams may be slowing down too. So now, all eyes turn to Harry. And here's the tragic irony. Harry didn't want this. He never wanted to be the breadwinner in Hollywood. That was Meghan's domain. His role was support, stability, and vision. But with her brand imploding, the pressure is mounting for him to re-enter the spotlight. Not for causes, not for documentaries, but for cash. And that is exactly what he didn't want. Sources close to the couple say the tension between them is rising. Harry reportedly feels betrayed by Meghan's failed promises, that she would handle the media machine, that she would build a brand strong enough to carry them both. He kept his distance from With Love Meghan for a reason. It wasn't his vision. It wasn't his style. And yet now, her failure is his problem. Some insiders even claim that Harry is being pushed toward his own solo projects. More books, more docuseries, even potential appearances that would require him to revisit royal wounds. One entertainment executive put it bluntly, "The only way Harry makes real money right now is by selling more of the past." But how much of the past is left to sell? Spare has already burned many bridges. The Oprah interview detonated others. The royal family has made it clear that reconciliation isn't on the table, at least not while private conversations keep being leaked and monetized. And if Harry is forced to go back to the well, to rehash more secrets just to stay afloat, it could mark the point of no return with his family. Again. And Meghan? She may be watching it all unfold from the sidelines, but she lit the match. Because it was her pitch, her deal, her show, and her promise. And now, Harry's stuck holding the bill. But while Harry spirals under financial pressure, Meghan is facing a different kind of reckoning. One that began with cake, candles, and a royal heartbreak. It should have been a tender moment, an olive branch, a quiet family gathering, a chance to heal. Queen Elizabeth, frail but still sharp, had made a private request to her chef. Bake her favorite chocolate cake, not for herself, but for her great-granddaughter Lilibet. A simple gesture, one candle, one slice, one more memory, one more photo, one more goodbye. But the Sussexes never showed up. This wasn't some formal royal engagement. It wasn't a public appearance or a televised moment. It was deeply personal. The Queen had gone out of her way to make the celebration feel intimate and warm. She'd arranged tea, cleared her schedule, and waited. But by the time the cake was ready, Meghan and Harry were already gone. They'd left. And that was the last time the Queen would ever prepare something for her granddaughter. Because Meghan never saw Queen Elizabeth again, Harry saw her once more on her deathbed. For a family that had just fled the UK in the name of protection and respect, this wasn't just a missed appointment, it was a rupture. And for the Queen, it may have been one heartbreak too many. Insiders who were present at Windsor that weekend recall something chilling. When the Sussexes arrived, members of the royal family literally left the room. One described it as the Red Sea parting. Meghan and Harry were given time alone with the Queen, but the atmosphere was strained. Cold. The Queen, ever the professional, smiled and played with the children, but those close to her say she was deeply saddened afterward, not because of conflict, but because of disconnection. She thought everything was fine, but behind the staged smiles and curated family moments, something far more sinister was at play. Because while the Queen believed she was reconnecting with her grandson and meeting her great-granddaughter on warm, sincere terms, Harry had a different plan. According to royal biographer Paul Burrell, Harry had secretly given the Queen a mobile phone, a device intended to bypass Charles, William, and all palace courtiers. His goal? establish a direct line to the CEO of the family without interference. The Queen was reportedly baffled. "What am I supposed to do with it?" she asked. The phone ended up shoved into a drawer alongside another unused handset from, of all people, Prince Andrew, who had once tried the same stunt. It was a symbolic rejection. The Queen didn't play games. She didn't like secrets, backdoor communications, or private side deals. She followed protocol, hierarchy, and trust. Harry, in trying to outmaneuver his family, may have permanently alienated the one woman who had protected him the most. And Meghan? She missed the moment entirely. But this wasn't just a failed tea party. It was a turning point. On the Sunday of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee weekend, the very moment when family unity should have been front and center, Meghan and Harry chose to leave. Some claim it was a misunderstanding. Others say it was strategic. They didn't want to be photographed, didn't want to play second fiddle, didn't want to be in the background of someone else's royal event. So they left before the cake was cut, before the memory was made, before the goodbye could happen. And that was the last time Meghan was ever in the same room as Queen Elizabeth II. The gravity of that decision can't be overstated. Meghan, the self-declared humanitarian, the modern royal, the mother who claimed to be protecting her children from toxic environments, skipped a private moment with the longest reigning monarch in British history, a monarch who had cleared her schedule, who had planned the cake, who had expected family. And when the Queen passed away just a few months later, it wasn't Meghan who was by her side. It was the same family Meghan had spent years criticizing. Worse, in the final months of the Queen's life, when she was grieving Prince Philip, battling pain, and quietly navigating what royal insiders now confirm was cancer, Harry reportedly called her repeatedly, demanding money and insisting that she accept Meghan. Some sources even claim he would yell during these calls, unable to grasp how frail the Queen truly was. She was in mourning, and he was still fighting. To many within the royal circle, this was the final straw. Not the Oprah interview, not Spare, not the Netflix docuseries, but this, the missed cake, the silent exit, the phone calls during illness, the broken trust during her final days. This was the moment Queen Elizabeth knew Harry had changed. And Meghan? She was never coming back into the fold. What was meant to be a quiet tea with a chocolate cake became a symbol of everything that went wrong. And for a woman who had always believed in duty, discretion, and grace, it was a deeply personal heartbreak. Because the Queen didn't just lose her grandson, she lost the chance to say goodbye. But while the Queen was left waiting in Windsor, Meghan and Harry were already planning their next move. One that would expose just how deep the divide really ran. It sounds like a scene from a political thriller. Secret phones, back-channel plots, hidden alliances bypassing the monarchy's most trusted gatekeepers. But this wasn't fiction. It was the reality behind Prince Harry's increasingly desperate attempts to control royal access. And at the center of it all was a woman who had ruled with dignity for over 70 years, a grandmother, a sovereign, and a target. According to the Royal Insider, a newly updated memoir from Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's former confidant and butler, Harry orchestrated a bold and deeply controversial maneuver in the final years of Queen Elizabeth's life. He smuggled her a mobile phone, not as a gift, not for convenience, but as a weapon. The goal? To create a direct, secret line of communication between Harry and Granny, cutting out King Charles, Prince William, and even the Queen's most loyal advisors. It was a blatant violation of royal protocol, a move that insiders describe as deeply unsettling and completely out of bounds. And the Queen's response? What am I supposed to do with it? The image is surreal. Britain's monarch, known for her analog lifestyle and unwavering routine, staring down at a blinking mobile phone like it's a foreign object. But beneath the quiet humor of the moment was a darker undertone. She knew what this meant. She understood, perhaps better than anyone, the symbolism. Her own grandson was trying to outmaneuver the institution she had spent a lifetime protecting. And she wasn't amused. Rather than keep the device, she placed it, unused, into the top drawer of a servant's desk, beside a similar gift she had once received from Prince Andrew. The drawer became a quiet monument to betrayal. 2 phones, 2 sons, 2 desperate men trying to manipulate a queen who had already seen more scandal than they could imagine. But this act wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern. Harry's increasing attempts to operate in the shadows, to bypass official channels, to create his own parallel monarchy where rules didn't apply and consequences were optional. And Meghan? She encouraged it. By this point, the Sussexes were running their own tightly controlled operation from Montecito. They had their own press strategy, their own brand managers, their own vision of royalty. One shaped not by centuries of tradition, but by Netflix deals, Instagram reels, and calculated leaks. And when those efforts failed to produce the desired results, they doubled down on what they thought would still work: direct influence, which made the Queen's resistance all the more painful. She didn't take the bait. She didn't pick up the phone. She didn't let Harry use emotional manipulation to cut through the proper royal channels. And this quiet refusal, this dignified rejection, may have been the final confirmation for Harry that the palace was lost to him. Insiders now claim that Harry's behavior during the Queen's final months became erratic and demanding. He reportedly called her repeatedly, sometimes angrily, pressuring her to stand up to Charles and intervene on Meghan's behalf. But what he failed to understand was that Queen Elizabeth wasn't a pawn. She wasn't someone to be activated when it suited him. She was the monarch, and even in her final days, she upheld the crown, not the chaos. Worse still, these private maneuvers were happening while the Queen was in mourning, grieving the loss of Prince Philip, navigating the reality of her own declining health, and preparing the royal family for a fragile transition of power. The last thing she needed was her grandson, demanding money, status, and special treatment for a woman who had, by then, alienated nearly every senior royal. And yet, Harry persisted, because he thought he had a secret weapon, a line of access that no one could block. But what he didn't realize was that the Queen saw through it all. She recognized the game, and she chose not to play. The royal family, by contrast, was outraged. The idea that Harry had attempted to create a private power channel raised alarm bells throughout the palace. One insider reportedly said, "It was deeply disrespectful. The Queen deserved peace, not pressure." And this wasn't just about hurt feelings. It was a breach of institutional trust. In the royal family, everything flows through protocol, out of respect, security, and legacy. To go rogue is to break the very foundation of what the monarchy stands for. Harry didn't just cross the line. He ignored it entirely, and in doing so, he may have sealed his fate. Because once the Queen placed that phone in the drawer, alongside Andrew's forgotten call device, she made her position clear. She would not be manipulated. Not by emotional appeals, not by tech-fueled end runs, not even by the grandson she once called her favorite. And after that moment, everything changed. Harry and Meghan were no longer simply outsiders. They were strategists, operating in the shadows, and in a family built on tradition, visibility, and discipline, that made them a threat. But what Harry and Meghan didn't see coming was a tidal wave of revelations, ones that would shake the legacy of Diana and drag Meghan back into the comparison she can never seem to escape. She's never far from the conversation. Princess Diana, icon, rebel, martyr, remains the most powerful phantom in modern royal history. And yet, in recent months, the ghost of Diana has become more than a memory. She's become a weapon, a mirror, a warning. And somehow Meghan Markle keeps standing in her shadow, sometimes by choice, sometimes by design. But now the parallels are taking a darker turn. In his updated memoir, The Royal Insider, Paul Burrell, Diana's longtime butler and confidant, reveals one of the most haunting claims to date. Queen Elizabeth believed Diana may have been murdered. According to Burrell, the Queen once pulled him aside and issued a chilling warning. Do be careful. There are forces at work in this country of which even I have no knowledge. She wasn't speaking as a grieving mother-in-law. She was speaking as the monarch, a woman with access to the most secure intelligence briefings in the country, a woman who had witnessed every scandal, every cover-up, every whisper behind the palace walls. For her to say such a thing, to acknowledge that even she didn't know who might be pulling strings in the dark, was unprecedented. And if she truly believed Diana was hunted by dark forces, then what does that mean for those who now echo Diana's journey? For Meghan Markle, who has spent the last 5 years carefully weaving herself into the same tragic narrative? Because make no mistake, Meghan has built her public identity on the Diana comparison, the compassionate outsider. The woman was too emotional, too bold, too difficult for the royal machine. She married a second son who never fit the mold. She fled the palace. She sat for the tell-all interviews. She even wore Diana's jewelry in key appearances. Every move she made was a wink to the legend. But here's where it gets dangerous. Diana didn't survive the story. And now, with Harry reportedly falling deeper into isolation and paranoia, some insiders fear that the couple may be walking straight into the same trap Diana tried to escape. Except this time, they're doing it with cameras rolling and contracts signed. The darker undertones of Diana's final years are surfacing again. Burrell's book recounts that Diana once told him, "They want to get rid of me," referring to powerful figures who she believed were conspiring against her. She even claimed Prince Charles planned to engineer a car accident that would remove her permanently. At the time, her words were dismissed as hysteria. Then she died in a car crash in a Paris tunnel, just as she had feared. Now, those old suspicions are back on the table. Royal commentators like Tom Sykes have reignited conversations about whether Diana's death was truly accidental, or if the forces behind the crown knew more than they admitted. Conspiracy or not, the timing, the warnings, and the fear Diana carried remain a stain on the monarchy's conscience. And Meghan knows all of it, which raises the question, is she continuing Diana's legacy or exploiting it? Because when Meghan invokes Diana, she doesn't just trigger public emotion, she triggers history, trauma, suspicion, and increasingly, division. The British press sees it as opportunistic. The American media sees it as branding. Royalists see it as offensive. But Harry? He sees his mother, It's why he reportedly lashes out behind the scenes whenever Meghan is criticized. Why does he cling to the belief that the royal family is repeating the same mistakes? Why did he accuse his own brother and father of being complicit in the system? Because in Harry's mind, Diana wasn't just betrayed, she was targeted. And now, with Meghan, it's happening again. But the difference is this: Diana wanted protection. Meghan rejected it. Diana begged for security. Meghan claimed she was denied it. Diana was hunted by cameras against her will. Meghan signed deals to bring cameras into her life. Diana died trying to outrun the press. Meghan built a brand courting the press, then blamed it when things went wrong. And the result? The narrative is spinning out of control. Even sympathetic observers are starting to notice the cracks. Meghan's portrayal as a modern Diana only works if the audience believes she's genuine. But as each business venture fails, as each strategic leak is exposed, as the contradictions pile up, the myth begins to unravel. And the deeper Meghan ties herself to Diana's legacy, the more scrutiny she invites. Because if Diana was a victim of dark forces beyond her control, who exactly is Meghan trying to fight now? Netflix, the palace, public opinion, or the truth? Because Diana's story was a tragedy. Meghan's? It's starting to look like a performance with a failing script. And the danger now is that in chasing Diana's legacy, Meghan might end up rewriting it for all the wrong reasons. But the next revelation isn't about the dead. It's about the living. And the man Diana feared the most may have had plans for her that were darker than anyone imagined. For decades, the story of Diana and Dodi Fayed has been sold as a whirlwind romance, two glamorous outsiders fleeing the suffocating grip of the monarchy. But as new revelations surface, a much darker version of events is coming into focus. And once again, the reality is far more disturbing than the fairy tale ever suggested. In Paul Burrell's bombshell memoir, The Royal Insider, the former butler to Princess Diana lifts the veil on what he claims really happened behind the scenes in the summer of 1997. According to Burrell, Diana wasn't swept off her feet. She wasn't in love. She was cornered, pressured, manipulated, and even sexually harassed by none other than Mohammed Al Fayed, the billionaire owner of Harrods and father of Dodi. The allegations are staggering. Burrell recounts how Diana told him that Al Fayed made it clear, "I want you to marry my son." But in Egyptian tradition, the father goes first. "I'm going to sleep with you." Diana's response was incredulous. "Can you imagine me making love to Yoda?" Her mocking nickname for the aging mogul. But the trauma behind the joke was real. According to Burrell, Al Fayed was constantly putting his hands on Diana. She described him as creepy and slimy, yet felt trapped by circumstance. She needed protection, and Al Fayed was offering it at a price. It's a grim reminder that even the most famous, beloved woman in the world could be preyed upon by powerful men who believed access equaled ownership. So why didn't Diana walk away? Burrell claims it was about security. After her divorce, she was stripped of her royal protection. And while Prince Charles reportedly pleaded with her to accept his financial help to hire a private team, Diana refused. She didn't trust him. Instead, she turned to the man who promised her safety, but also expected control in return. And that man was Mohammed Al Fayed. For Diana, Dodi may have been a shield, a distraction from loneliness, yes, but also a bargaining chip to stay under Al Fayed's protection. And tragically, it was that arrangement that placed her in the backseat of a Mercedes on that fatal night in Paris, with no proper security and no escape route. Now, nearly 3 decades later, the cycle appears to be repeating, not with Diana, but with Meghan. Because what Diana feared, coercion, manipulation, exposure, is the very thing critics now accuse Meghan of using. The tension is almost unbearable. One woman was desperate to stay safe, while the other is accused of using privacy as a brand and weaponizing her children for clout. Diana tried to escape the spotlight. Meghan curates it. Diana was cornered by those in power. Meghan is allegedly seeking power through curated victimhood. And here's where the comparison collapses. Diana's relationship with the press was one of survival. She danced with danger, sure, but it was often under duress. Meghan, however, has monetized the very structures Diana feared. She chose to do a Netflix docuseries. She chose to produce a lifestyle brand. She chose to release curated home videos and blurred birthday photos of her children to maximize attention while limiting accountability. The control Diana never had, Meghan wields, and many believe she abuses it. But this isn't just about two women. This is about the recurring pattern of exploitation and control that surrounds anyone who dares to step into the royal spotlight and then tries to bend it to their will. And just like Diana, Meghan has faced harassment, some of it very real, some of it exaggerated, some of it spun for PR. But the uncomfortable truth is that Meghan has also used that harassment as fuel. It's become part of her brand narrative, a reason for Oprah's interviews, a justification for lawsuits, a shield against critics. Where Diana was silenced, Meghan speaks. Loudly, constantly, strategically, but at what cost? Because there's a fine line between reclaiming your story and manipulating it, between telling your truth and selling it, between protecting your children and featuring them in documentaries when the cash runs low. And while Diana resisted exploitation, Meghan is now accused of embracing it, wearing it like a crown. Back in 1997, Diana told Paul Burrell that Al-Fayed made her feel like a possession, like something to be used for his gain. And today, some wonder if Harry is feeling the same way, trapped in a narrative he can't control, dragged into Hollywood drama he never signed up for, now forced to carry the financial weight of a media brand that's failing under his wife's direction. Because history doesn't just repeat, sometimes it twists. But if Diana's legacy is now being reshaped, there's one more ghost haunting Meghan's rise, and it's coming from the one woman whose quiet strength she can't seem to imitate. It began with so much promise. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, freshly unshackled from the palace gates, stepped into the spotlight with billion-dollar dreams. They had the sympathy of millions, the power of their royal titles, and the full backing of global platforms like Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House. They weren't just a couple, they were a movement, a brand, a legacy in the making. And now, that dream is in ruins. With Love, Meghan was supposed to be her reinvention, her Martha Stewart moment, her Goop-style empire built on authenticity, motherhood, and high-end jam. But instead, it became her downfall, a poorly conceived, heavily filtered lifestyle fantasy that never resonated with audiences. The show didn't just flop, it evaporated. And with it, so did the illusion. The numbers told the truth. The critics didn't hold back. The LA Times, once a safe haven of glowing praise, called the show a pretentious mess. Netflix insiders confirmed what everyone already suspected. Meghan didn't move the needle. The show dropped off the charts in 11 days. No season 3, just one last holiday special. A quiet exit dressed in tinsel and denial. Her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, launched with glittering hype and jam jars hand-delivered to influencer friends. But there was no follow-through, no shop, no product lines. Just a mismatched website and a fading logo that now feels more like a scrapbook from a dream that never launched. And Prince Harry? He's no longer the quietly supportive husband. He's the man left holding the financial fallout, forced to consider more memoirs, more docuseries, more rehashing of royal trauma, just to keep the lights on in Montecito. The promise Meghan made, "You don't have to work, I'll handle it," has dissolved. The brand that was supposed to set them free has now trapped them both. Meanwhile, Meghan's most controversial pivot may still be ahead. As finances tighten and the brand bleeds relevance, whispers grow louder that she may bring the children, Archie and Lilibet, into the spotlight in a desperate attempt to reignite interest. The same woman who once scolded the press for invading her family's privacy may soon invite the cameras in herself, because when the brand dies, the rules die with it. And make no mistake, the brand is dying. And is what was once a carefully curated narrative of female empowerment and self-made success now looks like a hollow facade, propped up by PR gloss and increasingly thin content. From fake orchards to filtered trauma, the audience is starting to see through the act. The press is turning, former allies are going silent. Even the Sussex fan base, the once vocal supporters on social media, has splintered into skeptics and apologists. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. But the fall of With Love? Meghan isn't just about a failed Netflix show. It's about the collapse of a myth. The idea that Meghan could walk away from the crown and build her own, one more profitable, more progressive, more authentic, that she could outshine the royals without their machinery, that she could sell relatability from behind a Montecito hedge. But audiences didn't buy it. Not the jam, not the brand, not the performance. Because in the end, authenticity can't be staged, family can't be monetized, and Diana's crown can't be worn by anyone who treats pain like a product. So now, the path forward is murky. The Spotify deal is gone. The Netflix partnership is fractured. The brand is damaged. And Meghan's billionaire dream, the one built on bread, blurred kids, and lifestyle slogans, is over. What's left? A damaged legacy, a disillusioned husband, a shrinking empire, and the haunting realization that she may have run out of second chances. The billionaire dream dies here. And this time, there's no palace to blame.